Welcome back to the City Current Radio Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're honored to be with our next guest. We're talking about career transitions. And so we're diving into this world of career transition support groups. We're joined by Susan Levko. She's a marketing and communications strategic consultant and a moderator and facilitator with career transition support groups, the CT groups. So how are you doing, Susan?
I'm doing great, Jeremy. And yourself?
Doing very well. So what you're doing is a powerful service to so many. We'll talk about the help that you're providing and the mentorship and guidance. But let's start. Give us a little backstory on the CT groups, the career transition groups, because this has been going on since 1976. So a good amount of legacy. Give us some background.
Well, career transition was born by a group of men that started through the churches, through the ministries, and got the synagogues involved here in 1976 when people were looking for jobs and couldn't afford to pay for career help. This is a free ministry that's done. There was at one time 11 groups. There's now 6 because of COVID. They had general groups and they had specialty groups. But with COVID, we only have the general groups. There are 6 groups a week. Some of them are just coming in, learning how to network. There is one group that teaches you how to interview, how to negotiate. We have another group that does speakers on different topics, resumes, application tracking software, how to go about Zooming. We've taught Zoom lessons. We've taught behavioral questions, anything and everything that has to do with finding a job. We've even helped people with interviewing, taking them and helping them buy clothes to interview. We've helped everybody from college students that are just starting out in their career to senior level people, C-suite executives, managers, supervisory and administrative personnel.
So where do you start? So if I say, hey, I need help, and then obviously I reach out to you, talk about those first steps of reaching out, how you start to kind of figure out where they are in their search, those first couple of questions to kind of get your bearings. Walk us through that process.
Well, my first question to everybody is, how long have you been looking for a job? And then I ask them, what have they been doing? And I'll list down what they've been doing. And I'll ask them about their resume. Do they have a 30-second elevator speech? Do they have a marketing plan? What has been their approach? And I would have to say that 95% of the people that come to career transition have never heard of a marketing plan to do your job search. One of the questions we pose to people when they come, why don't you take a blank sheet of paper, sit down for an hour and a half and write down anything that you'd like to do in life. It doesn't make a difference if you want to be a garbage man or a nuclear physicist. You come up with all those things, and then one of our moderators will sit down with you and weigh the pros and cons on what you're doing. It could be if you are a wonderful knitter and you want to go into the knitting business, but financially that won't work for you. So how do you take those skills and make your professional career? We help all kinds of people go through this process. We even have a counselor that helps you if you're going through ups and downs, because the job search is a lot of peaks and valleys.
When you look at the resume and you start, kind of redlining through and making tweaks and things like that, what are the main things that you're looking at with their resume to help them on that process? So what gets your attention first?
Well, most of the time people list responsibilities. And what you really need to list is your accomplishments and how did you accomplish them? Percentages, dollars. Did you lead a team and did they do something in record-breaking time? So it's what you have accomplished for this job. And I always tell everybody when they start to write a resume, look at the jobs that you've had, whether you've been in the job market for 5 years or 25 years, and list down everything that you have done. And then we'll look at the similarities and the differences and be able to write down your accomplishments at each job. You want to have about 3 to 5 accomplishments in every one of your jobs. And you don't want to have any more than 10 to 15 years on your resume. You also have to have a stellar LinkedIn page in today's world. If you don't tell a story on your LinkedIn page, you're not going to get noticed by companies and recruiters. So LinkedIn is different than your resume.
When you look at the communication skills and the interview side of things, how do you help them polish up those skill sets and the communication and the storytelling side to make sure that what they have on their resume is articulated when they get to the interview?
We like to use the STAR approach: situation, task, action, and result. With everything that you've accomplished, you have to know the situation. You write down the situation as long as it can be. You write down the task of what you had to do. You write down the actions that you took, and you write down the results. And then we go through it and we shorten it so that you have a 1 to 2 minute speech on your accomplishment when they ask you a behavioral question, or when they ask you, tell me about yourself. Well, they have your resume in front of you. So you want to tell them things that you might do in your private life or other things that are not on your resume that you've accomplished to give them your background.
How many people, when you're talking about the communication side and sitting down, are those one-on-one? Are those in a group setting? Walk us through kind of how the magic happens.
Well, it can be either or. In one of the groups that we have, that's on Tuesday morning, it's done in a group setting where they teach you all the interviewing questions and how to answer them. And then you're supposed to go home and answer them for yourselves. And then we do practice interviews, and those are mostly done one-on-one or two-on-one because there's panel interviews, there's individual interviews. So whichever style we think you're going to get, depending upon the company, whether it's in Memphis or out of Memphis, we have a lot of experience with different companies. And so we're able to interview. We do it through, nowadays, we're doing it on Zoom purposely to make sure that the person's background is right, their lighting is good. We recommend buying a round light for $19.99 at Walmart so that you have that backlit light so that you don't look dead. And everything else. So we have also a list of resources that we give to people. There is a really good thing out there called ResRunner, where if you're applying for a job online, you want to match your resume with what the job description says with words. So we ask you to customize your resume to the job description and then run it through ResRunner. It's a free service and it doesn't take but 2 or 3 minutes. And it really helps you stand out and get through the application tracking software. So there are so many elements and so many things that you have to do today to get a job. I mean, if you don't ask for proper references, when they ask you for references, you're not going to have all that information available. So we show people how to build your references. One of the things that I teach them is not only have the person's name, address, and phone number, but have a column and tell them how they know you. Give them some insight so that when they pick up the phone to call the reference, they have some kind of boundary where they know either you worked in a community service project for them, or you worked with them at a job, you supervise them, or you just know them in life. So those are real important things. Another thing a lot of people don't have is a brag book. A brag book can contain letters from people that said, oh, you did a great job. A brag book could be you put together this giant plan for a construction site, a project management plan, it could be a marketing plan. There are a myriad of things that you could put in a brag book. In one of my brag books, I have a book that I edited for somebody. So, and I'm a marketing person. So that's an unusual piece of paper to put in a book to put in my brag book. But I just feel that anything that you've done through your career can be made into a brag book.
Yeah, great tips. When you look at the success you've had, because I know even through the pandemic, you've had great success with these C2 groups. So talk about kind of how things are shifting with the pandemic and shifting back to a little bit more normal and just what success you've seen.
Well, since the pandemic began, we have people, 43 people have landed positions. And we believe it's the techniques that we teach them. How to network. Networking is the number one thing we like to teach. We have found, whether it's in Memphis or wherever the person goes, networking is what gets them in the door. You can apply online, but if you find a person in the company that you can network with, that can put your resume on the top pile, you just have to prove yourself. And that has been, out of the 43 people that we have placed, 95% of them have gotten their job through networking. They might have applied online, but initially they were introduced to the hiring manager from networking. And we have had plenty of C-suite executives, directors, management, supervisory, and administrative people that have found their jobs during the pandemic. It has been a lot slower in coming. People, I would say that the length of interviewing is a lot longer during the pandemic. We've had some people who have had 7 to 9 interviews before they've been hired. And the background checks are incredible during the pandemic, much more higher level than they used to be. And so people are being extremely cautious during this time period when they're doing hiring. Also, the training that these people are getting is a lot different than when you're in the office with somebody else. So it takes you longer once you get the job. And this is what our former CTers are telling us. The training process is a lot longer. But otherwise, we feel that we've had a lot of success over the last year, since March of 2020.
When you look at on your end, kind of where things are headed, talk about the ability to take on more people. Like, what does that look like in terms of, are you open for more people to come in? What about scalability on this? Talk about scalability.
We are always open for more people. We have had up to 20, 25 people on a Zoom call. And most of the Zoom calls are an hour and a half, depending upon how many people are on there and how many and the feedback that they're getting. We limit time. We watch the time. Some of them, like with the interviewing one on Tuesday mornings when they're teaching, that is not a problem to have as many people in the room. Yes, there are discussions, but the ones like on Monday morning and Thursday morning is an accountability group. They moderate the time on how much time each person has. On the Wednesday morning group that I facilitate, I do a lot of open-ended facilitation. What are your problems that you're having? Where do you feel your stumbling blocks are? And we go through that. We teach Zoom protocols on Wednesday morning. We introduce people to each other. When you're in career transition, you're going to these career transition meetings. A lot of times the other people in the room help you and introduce you to other people. So you're growing your network. And we teach people how to go to the associations and network, even though they're on Zoom. PRSA and MGMA, a lot of these associations in town are doing Zooms, just like cityCURRENT. And when you're sitting there, people's names are on the bottom of their screens. So if you take down 5 or 10 names and you go to LinkedIn and you look for them, and then you start linking in with them. And everybody wants to help you. Sometimes they just don't know how. And that's where your marketing plan comes in. If you do your marketing plan well and you talk to the person and say, hey, I just want 15, 20 minutes of your time. I'm looking for your advice to help me in my career. I'm looking for a new job. I'm not asking you for a job, but I'm looking to see who you know at the companies that I'm interested in. Can you please help me? And when you do that, people are usually very willing to help you and get you involved. Sometimes we've had people become helpers for networkers that that are looking for positions, even though they have not been part of career transition. So they help us.
Very, very good. And what's funny is I was going to ask you for a couple of networking tips, but you gave me some good ones right there. So how do we reach out? How do people get in touch with you? How do they start taking those next steps? So where do we go? Website, email, where would you direct us to go?
Well, we're in the process of doing a new website, so that's not up, but we have a Facebook page, Career Transitions, Memphis, Tennessee, and there is a sheet on there that lists all of the Zoom meetings, or people can contact me directly. My email is susanlevko, Levko, @gmail.com, and I'll be more than glad to get them involved. Like I said, we have 6 classes. They're all different structures. Some of them are just lectures. Some of them are teaching. Some of them are people who have been out in the world. They could be an HR director. They could be anybody that has something to do with hiring. We have somebody who teaches LinkedIn, what you should put on it and what you shouldn't put on. We have people that teach you how to deal with recruiters, the outside recruiters and the inside recruiters. So we have a lot of people that come and talk. We teach networking. I teach it on a quarterly basis, how to network. I have a whole presentation on how you should network. We have a presentation on how to research a company. So there's a lot that goes into finding a job that you really want to stay at and that you want to do a good job for. So we do it all. We help a lot of people in need. And
Well,
this is all done free.
yeah, I'm about to say, I mean, it's great stuff and great content and very helpful. So, Susan, thank you for all you do. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you for coming on the show.
It's my pleasure. Thank you, Jeremy, for having us. And we'll look forward to talking to you soon.